Hello, scholars, and welcome to Lesson 8.3, Graphing Quadratics. So we're going to actually be solving by factoring, which is what we've done in the last unit, actually. So we're going to use that and kind of expand it, because when we factor, we can actually find our x-intercepts of our parabola here. So let's write down some steps. So our first step is going to be to just factor the polynomial like we did before. What is the polynomial, you ask? Well, it is that x squared plus 16x plus 63. Before, we didn't have it equaling 0. We just had it as a plain old polynomial. So we're going to just go ahead and factor that part. So we have to ask ourselves, what multiplies to 63 and adds to 16? So what I would do is go through my factors of 63, basically what multiplies to 63, and that's going to be 7 and 9. And see how 7 and 9 also add to 16. So that must be my factor pair. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the parentheses. Since it's positive 7, it's x plus 7. Since it's positive 9, it's going to be x plus 9. And that's still going to be equal to 0. And now step 2 is I'm going to split this into two different equations. And the reason being is if anything times 0 is going to be 0. So if I were to divide both sides by x plus 7, I would still have x plus 9 equals 0, and that would make my equation true. Just like if I divided both sides by x plus 9, I would have x plus 7 equals 0, and then whatever x would be to make it 0 would make it true. So basically, I'm going to just pretend like I'm taking one part equals 0 and the other part equals 0. So that means x plus 7 equals 0 and x plus 9 equals 0. So see, I have two different equations. And now I'm going to solve for x. And I'm going to have two solutions. So those two solutions would be, so my first one to solve for x, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So x is equal to negative 7. That's my first one. Then on this other one, I'm going to subtract 9 from both sides. And x equals negative 9. So my two solutions are x equals negative 7 and x equals negative 9. You can pause the video here, write everything down. If you have any questions, you can come find me or use the paper app. But I'm going to go ahead and move on. So now for number 2, this is similar, except it does not equal 0. Notice the one above, right, is equal to 0 already. This one is not. So my first step is going to be to move everything to the side. Usually the left side, so that it equals 0. So how am I going to do that? So first I'm going to draw my line through the equal sign and then, move this stuff from the right to the left. So I'm going to start with negative 3x. The opposite of that is positive or plus 3x. I'm going to do it to both sides. Notice that I'm lining up the x with the x. So I bring down x squared. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3. So negative 3x. This cancels out, and I have negative 2. And now I still have to move that negative 2 over, so I'm going to add 2 to both sides. That cancels out, so I have x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. All right, and then now that I have that, I'm going to follow the steps from above. So I still have to go ahead and factor this. So I have to ask myself, what multiplies to positive 2 and adds to negative 3? And that's going to be negative 2 times negative 1. So my parentheses look like this: x minus 2 and then x minus 1. And that equals 0. Now, just like before, I'm going to split it up into two different equations. So x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. I add 2 to both sides. And x equals 2. I add 1 to both sides. And x equals 1. And these are my two solutions. Again, you can pause the video, make sure you've written everything down. Then we're going to go ahead onto the guided practice. We're actually going to go ahead and skip this for now. We are actually shortening this lesson to just those first examples. We're not actually going to graph yet. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the guided practice. All right, so for number 1, I want you to pause the video, see if you can give it a try. All right, so let's see what our answer is. There we go. So now I'm going to draw my line. Since this is not equal to 0, I need to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to go ahead and move this 2. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. Notice how I'm lining up the numbers, right? 2 goes with the 16. So I bring down x squared. I bring down negative 7x. And negative 16 minus 2 is negative 18. These cancel out, so I'm left with 0. Now I have to figure out what multiplies to negative 18 and adds to negative 7. And since there's negatives, that means it could also subtract to 7. So think about it for a moment. It's going to be 9 and 2. But now because it's a negative 7, which one should be negative? My bigger number. So it's going to be negative 9 and positive 2. Okay, again, it can multiply to 18 and add or subtract to 7. And that's why I picked 9 and 2. But it's negative 9 because my answer here is negative 7. So this 9 has to be negative, right? Negative 9 plus 2 gives me negative 7. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in the parentheses. X minus 9, x plus 2 equals 0. I break it up into the two equations. And I add 9 to get x is 9. And I subtract 2 to get negative 2. So my answer is x equals 9 and x equals negative 2. If you don't need to write these equations, you can just kind of look at it and see some of us, right? Like x minus 9, it has to be positive 9 to give me 0, right? Or x plus 2, x has to be negative 2 for me to get 0. So if you want to skip this step, you can. But at least, show a little bit of work, have your answers boxed, all of that. All right, so for number 2, go ahead and pause the video, see if you can try this one yourself. All right, so I have to make this equal to 0, so I got to get rid of that negative x to the right. So I'm going to add x to both sides. When I do that, I have x squared. 2x plus x is 3x minus 40, and that's equal to 0. Now, what multiplies to negative 40 and adds to 3? Or it could subtract to 3 because I have that negative there, and that's going to be 8 and 5. But which one has to be negative and which one has to be positive? Since this is positive 3, 8 has to be positive. So it's 8 and negative 5. Again, does that multiply negative 40? Yes. Does that add to positive 3? Yes. So I'm going to put x plus 8 and then x minus 5 equals 0. And then I break it up. X plus 8 equals 0 and x minus 5 equals 0. Subtract 8. X is negative 8. And add 5. X is positive 5. All right, I'm going to just to speed things up a little bit, I'm going to just kind of show the answer for the rest of them. So go ahead and pause and do 3, 4, and 5 by yourself. And I'm going to show the answers a little bit faster. All right. This one's already as equals 0, so we don't have to move anything. My answer for number 3 is x equals 4, x equals negative 2. Two minus 4 is negative 2. Negative 10 minus 5 is negative 15. For number 4, x equals 5 and x equals negative 3. And for number 5, x equals negative 7 and x equals positive 2. All right, this video is now complete. You can now go ahead to 8.3 practice, which is on Delta Math through Canvas. Then you can move on to 8.3 Mastery Check, which is also in Canvas and Delta Math. All right, scholars, good luck.